Okay, hello everybody. My name is Corinne Brown, in case you don't know me. And today I'm going to do a little mini webinar. I'm calling it a Webby. It's not a full webinar, it's just a Webby to share some of the core concepts from my Love Your Labor program, my flagship labor preparation program. So since 2015, have been doing a webinar. I did a live webinar every Wednesday for 7 years. And it was the natural labor preparation webinar, and it was all about how to labor naturally without unnecessary fear, pain, or interventions. And that was great. People loved it. Very enlightening. But now there is more that I need to share. There is more to the conversation than just how to labor naturally without unnecessary fear, pain, or interventions. It's actually much more now about your vibration and how you can attract and manifest the birth that you want to have based on vibration, consciousness, quantum physics, all of these things that I've learned since originally creating the Love Your Labor program. And that's what I wanted to do this little Webby about, is raising your vibration around labor and birth and understanding why societally we have a low vibration around labor and birth. And what I mean by a high and low vibration is basically your consciousness, your dimension of consciousness around any given topic, right? We have these consciousnesses around any facet of our life. And the lower vibration is what we would call 3D, and this is where most people live, is, anything from orange down. So disappointment, doubt, worry, blame, discouragement, sadness, anger, rage, revenge, hatred, jealousy, insecurity, guilt, unworthiness. You see how as we go lower, the feelings get heavier. Fear, grief, depression, despair, and powerlessness. And unfortunately, when it comes to labor and birth, a lot of people are in that very, very lowest tier, that gray box of 3D consciousness around labor and birth. So my job with the previous webinar that I would do was to bring people up into a place more of, a little bit more trust and optimism and hopefulness and contentment about their ability to give birth. But now I want to raise it up even higher. I'm not happy with that green box anymore. I want it to be up into positive expectation, belief, enthusiasm, eagerness, empowerment, freedom, medical freedom, to truly be able to be sovereign in your birth experience, joy, passion, love, appreciation, right? These are the emotions that I want you to feel around your labor and birth, not fear, grief, depression, despair, powerlessness. Guilt is another one that is laid on heavy in the 3D consciousness of labor and birth. And so this is the additional dimension, if you will, that I want to add to the old webinar in this little mini kind of crash course of a webinar that I'm offering here today. So this webinar is for you if you want to have a natural birth in hospital, if you want to have a home birth, a birth center birth, or a VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after cesarean. Any of those kinds of birth experiences are pretty much my forte. If you want to have a fully medicated birth experience, I wouldn't say that this webinar or my program is for you. If you want to have a free birth, absolutely, women in my program have had free births, but definitely a natural birth in hospital, I'm your girl. If you're having a home birth, I'm your girl. Birth center or VBAC, I've had 2 VBACs, which I'll talk about here in a second. And I have a soft spot in my heart for all of these kinds of birth experiences. I've actually had them all except for a birth center birth. So definitely stick around if any of those apply to you. And so I want to give a little background about who I am. Usually I do like a little W5, like a who, what, when, where, why. Here, because it's just a Webby, we're just going to do a few. So who am I? Well, my name again is Corinne Brown. I live in Nova Scotia, Canada. I am primarily, first and foremost, the mom of these 3 little guys. So my oldest is Rowan, my middle son is Harvey, and then my youngest is Vance. And these were their birth experiences. And at the time, I didn't understand how they were all going to play into the grand scheme of what is in the center there, which is my business. But now I can truly see how my birth experiences have helped my business. They've shaped my business, because my first birth was a planned home birth turned C-section, when we found out that the baby was breech while we were in labor. My second birth was a planned hospital VBAC, completely natural. And then my third was a dreamy, ecstatic, natural home birth that took 3 hours and was just the absolute highlight of my life. And I'll go into more detail of those birth experiences if you decide to take the next step with me and sign up for a call. I'll give you more of a breakdown there. But that's a little bit about who I am. Primarily, I'm a mom, and I'm also the founder of this business called Brown Roots Love. And why listen to me? Like, what makes me legit? Well, a few things. First of all, I have my flagship online program called Love Your Labor. This is a program that I created from my naturopathic practice. So I'm a former naturopathic doctor. I graduated in 2010. I practiced until 2014. And in 2015, I created Love Your Labor. And that has been my flagship program, my mission, my love ever since. And it just keeps getting bigger and better. And this is really how I help the world, how I raise the consciousness around labor and birth, which is my mission. But I also wrote a book called The Badass Birth Goddess. I also have a podcast called Rebirth with Corinne Brown, and this is where we talk all things conspirituality, rebirth, labor and birth. I share all kinds of birth stories from my Love Your Labor mamas on my podcast, so that's a great resource. And then I also have a postpartum program called the New Mama Manual, which is actually included in the Love Your Labor program. And this is all just to empower women to avoid unnecessary medical interventions for them and their babies, right? I really believe, as I'll describe here, that pharma is trying to monetize us in what would otherwise be the most beautiful, positive, empowering experience of our lives. And so I want to stand in the way of that for you. So where am I? Like I said, I'm in Nova Scotia, Canada, by that little yellow star there. Pretty tiny little province up here in Canada, but the majority of my clients, I would say, are in the United States, although we have clients globally. And what makes me different from other labor and birth courses out there? I know that there are a lot of doulas and other, labor prep trainings and things like this. Well, I think I'm completely different from all of those. I have a little bit of a unicorn personality because I am a former naturopathic doctor. I do focus on empowering women to avoid unnecessary medical interventions. I do have a fiery mama bear, no bullshit kind of attitude and energy. I believe completely in our energy and the divine and the manifestation and attraction, the sort of esoteric side of labor and birth. I've had 3 very different birth experiences myself, and I am here to protect you and your baby from these unnecessary medical interventions, which I know from working with tens of thousands of women over the last decade. I know that they're coming down pretty hard on women in hospital. Even in midwifery care these days, it's tricky to avoid unnecessary medical interventions unless you're fully educated about them and prepared to advocate around them and know what your alternatives are. And the other thing that makes me different is I have a proven system. This isn't something that I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what works, right? This is something that I've been in this world for almost a decade now, coming up on a decade. And it is, this is what I was doing in my naturopathic practice. I was seeing great results. I moved it into an online program where we had thousands of women go through and have positive, successful natural birth experiences. And so I am completely confident that this works. And I think that that's what makes me different, right? I'm not just saying, let's try this. I'm saying, I know exactly what works. I know exactly how to optimize your hormones. I know exactly how to help you avoid unnecessary interventions and just protect your natural birth blueprint so you can achieve the birth experience you're going for. So I want to start with this quote by Ina May Gaskin, who, if you don't know who Ina May is, you have to look her up after this little Webby, because she is known as the mother of modern midwifery. She's a very famous old school, I say midwife, but she was not a formally trained midwife. So if you get my book, or if you do a little research on her online, you will see her very fantastic story of how she became an honorary midwife through just attending thousands of births at the farm. But that in and of itself deserves a whole entire webinar or podcast episode. But I like to start with this quote by Ina May. And as you can see, I met her. I went down to the farm in 2017 and I requested a meeting with her and was able to go to her house and meet her personally. It was fabulous. But she says, one of her favorite, or her most famous quotes, is, "Your body is not a lemon." But the thing with that is it's not the full quote. That's just a little piece of it. And I put the whole quote in my book, The Badass Birth Goddess, and I want to read it here for the full effect. So it says, "Remember this, for it's as true as it gets. Your body is not a lemon. You are not a machine. The creator is not a careless mechanic. Human female bodies have the same potential to give birth as well as aardvarks, lions, rhinoceroses, elephants, moose, and water buffalo. Even if it has not been your habit throughout your life so far, I recommend that you learn to think positively about your body." And I love that quote because it normalizes birth. And there's a whole entire chapter in my book about normalizing birth. Let's stop making it this really big, scary medical event that everybody needs saving from, right? Let's normalize it. It's something that happens every single day in nature, and your body knows how to do it. Just like it knows how to conceive the baby and grow the baby and develop the baby in incredible specificity with the right cells and the right organs in the right places. I mean, when you think about it, it kind of blows your mind. And your body is just like everybody else's body and knows how to do that. Your body is not a lemon. But unfortunately, we've been kind of trained and probed and programmed to believe that our bodies are a lemon. And this is why so many women go through the labor funnel. And this labor funnel is something that I have taught on since 2015. This is kind of one of the central trainings of the original version of the Love Your Labor program, which is that this is the domino effect of medical interventions that happens in hospital that most women are completely oblivious to. And so they think that their body is a lemon, that there is something wrong with them and only them. And that's why they need all these medical interventions and all this medical observing and monitoring and all of these outside influences in order to make sure that the labor process goes safely and smoothly, when really we're designed for it to go safely and smoothly. So I'm going to really quickly recap the labor funnel, super short because this is just a Webby, but I do outline it in more detail if you do go on to book a free call, which we'll talk about in a second. So in the purple triangle, these are kind of things that trip women into the labor funnel. And I just have a few listed here, basically hitting your due dates, having your water break before your body is ready to kick into labor, having slow dilation or long early labor. Those two usually go hand in hand, having baby not properly positioned in the pelvis, as well as 11 other obstacles, which I talk about in the Love Your Labor program. These obstacles, you have to be able to identify that they are obstacles. They are premeditated, they are pre-planned, they are not unique and specific to you. And you have to know how to, well, it's like any obstacle, right? If you're running an obstacle course, you need to figure out how to work around it, how to dodge it, how to avoid these obstacles so that they don't trip you into the next thing, which is the labor funnel. And the first step into the labor funnel, no matter what the obstacle is almost always with Pitocin. And Pitocin is a drug that they give you in the hospital that looks a lot like our own natural labor hormone, oxytocin, but because it's the concentrated synthetic pharmaceutical version, it brings on labor contractions way harder, longer, stronger, closer together than your natural labor contractions would be. And so it causes labor to come on like a freight train, and the vast majority of women just can't cope. They're not prepared for that level of intensity that quickly. And so they ask for the epidural, and then that epidural slows the contractions back down, and they will then want to ramp that Pitocin back up to get the contractions back to long, strong, close together where they were. But she might be napping. She might not even feel these contractions, but the baby is being exposed to these really long, really difficult contractions without much of a break in between, and that can cause baby to go into distress, and then the baby's heart rate drops, and then we have a medical emergency. Everybody's freaking out around the labor and delivery room. Oh my God, we got to get this baby out right now. Then we have an instrumental intervention like vacuum forceps, episiotomy, or a C-section, or sometimes even an emergency C-section where mom is completely sedated for the birth of her baby. And all of these unnecessary interventions lead to a more difficult postpartum and breastfeeding for mom and baby. So it's this very kind of like slippery slope of interventions that make mom just feel more and more and more disempowered, like her body is more and more and more of a lemon, and she just gets more and more and more afraid that her baby won't be safe at the end of it. And it's a tragedy, honestly, that women's birth experiences are stolen by the labor funnel every single day. It's a process of over medicalization, and they do it throughout your whole entire pregnancy so that at the time of your labor, you are primed, you are ready, you are plugged into the medical system so much so that they are ready right there. Okay, now let's move on to the next step of medicalizing your pregnancy, which is medicalization of your birth, which is where they really cash in on you, right? This is the medical system's cash cow. Cesarean is the most performed surgery done in hospital. It's the most lucrative way to get your baby onto the outside. And it's the whole entire purpose of all of this is to medicalize, to cash in, for pharma to get its greedy little fingers into your birth experience. But like I said, I want to stand in the way of that and help you to overcome the labor funnel. And this labor funnel is not something that, I conjured up just based on the birth experiences that I've heard, which are now in the thousands, but that those birth experiences confirmed what I saw in, I think it was like 2008, when Ricki Lake created and released The Business of Being Born. And this is a documentary that talked about this systematic domino effect of medical interventions in order to monetize birth. And this shot my eyes way open. It was one of my very first awakenings to how, society really is corralling us to be monetized by pharma in many different ways. And this is a huge one that really, really makes me quite angry that women are being taken advantage of and violated this way. It's not new. It's been going on since the 1920s. But certainly, is still something that we're grappling with. And if, that labor funnel and all the fear and anxiety behind it are making you, if you're pregnant, are making you feel nervous, are making you feel like, oh my God, I don't really want to go to the hospital and go through this whole like dramatic rigmarole of medical, interventions, you're feeling nervous, you're feeling doubt, fear, right? And that is because, again, we've been programmed to believe that. This societal birth bias, which is kind of the general belief that natural birth is pointless, that why on earth would you ever want to feel your contractions? We could just go to the hospital and get them numbed out. This societal birth bias is what I taught about in my previous webinar about this is why when women like you and me say we want to give birth naturally, this is why we get all the discouraging responses like, don't be a hero, you're going to change your mind as soon as you have the first contraction. Oh my God, they don't give you a medal at the end of it anyways. It's the same baby no matter what. They say all these things. Good luck with that, they say. Right? And that's because societally we have been programmed to believe that the hospital's the safe way to go. You just get them numbed out. You just get the baby out. That's all that matters. But again, it goes deeper than that. Right? Originally, it was the societal birth bias and the labor funnel, but now I've incorporated the two into the birth matrix. And this is really, really what's going on in our society. And this is what we really need to be aware of and really need to be able to exit. It's not just the labor funnel. It's so much bigger than that. right? And again, I'll go into this in more detail if you do decide to book a call, and I'll explain the birth matrix in more detail. But I want to highlight it here because we are born into the birth matrix, right? Most of us were born in hospital with a doctor. And so that's kind of like the societal belief, or that's the consciousness that we're born into. And so that's our starting point. And then we got propaganda through TV, movies, that labor and birth is scary, it's traumatic, it's medicalized, it's, the woman being rolled through the hospital halls with her legs in the air, screaming in pain, and they're just trying to get her the drugs. And, that's what we saw. And so as little girls, we are being subconsciously programmed with fear, stress, and disempowerment around the labor and birth process. And so then fast forward 20 plus years to when we ourselves are pregnant and we have these deep-seated beliefs and we aren't even necessarily in touch with them because they're subconscious. So maybe we'll take a childbirth ed class because we'll be like, well, I don't really know a lot about like childbirth. So you'll take a childbirth ed class, which is really, again, just priming you and pushing you into the hospital birth system. So we've got this subconscious fear, stress, and disempowerment around birth, which makes home birth not even an option. Then the childbirth education is pushing people more and more into the hospital. So then we have the hospital birth, which even if you want to have a natural birth in hospital, it's possible, but you have to be prepared to be going against the grain, right? That the system of the hospital, the flow of the hospital is to be swept up into these interventions. And so that is what a hospital birth looks like. Then we've got the time pressure, the fear, the people in and out, strange places, strange smells, strange, all the things, right? You're not in your comfortable, happy place. And so that causes labor to be inefficient. Then we're into the labor funnel, which we just described. And then on the other side of the labor funnel, we have monetary gain, and that'll happen every time, where they'll cash in on you going through the labor funnel. But the other thing that comes out the other side of the labor funnel is iatrogenic injury. And this is the sad truth of the matter, that, women and babies are being harmed every day by these medical interventions. And it's not stopping because it benefits pharma, it benefits hospitals and the insurance companies. And so women have to advocate for themselves. They have to protect themselves from this iatrogenic injury. It's the third leading cause of death in North America. Like doctor error, medical error, medication error, surgical error. These are real things that happen all the time. These side effects, these consequences of the medical interventions are not benign. So just understanding that it's not just about numbing the pain and not feeling the contractions. There's a lot of risk that you take on when you go through the labor funnel, and being aware of that and the fact that there could be iatrogenic injury on the other side is a very important thing to know. And just also know that you don't have to go that path, that there's a not so beaten path here where, yes, maybe we were programmed as little girls to fear labor and birth, but we can interrupt that programming. We can change our subconscious beliefs. We can get a new kind of childbirth education. Even if we do deliver in a hospital or a home or birth center, wherever we are, we don't need to go through the labor funnel, and we can actually achieve the birth of our dreams, because we only get so many opportunities to do this. It's not like you give birth every day. So you're not going to play that game with the hospital where there's any chance that they are going to manipulate you into stealing your birth experience to line their pockets, right? Because either way, you're going to be emotionally imprinted by this experience. We were emotionally imprinted as little girls to see all these images, right? Does anybody want to do any of this? No, it looks terrible, because that's what the TV wants us to believe, because that's what the TV is driving us into the labor funnel. And that's the old paradigm, right? Is the fear and the matrix. It's that old paradigm is about monetizing and medicalizing a normal, natural birth experience, which, is a rite of passage for women to enter motherhood. But instead, it's being interrupted and disturbed through medical interventions. But as you guys know, if you are like me and a little bit on the conspiratorial side of things, you know that we are moving into a new earth. And only the things that operate in harmony with Mother Nature's divine design are going to survive into New Earth, right? All of these man-made, medical, disruptive, harmful interventions that are not conducive to mom and baby thriving in the postpartum are going to stay with the crumbling old earth. They're going to stay with the old paradigm, and those who choose it will choose it. But those who choose to work in harmony with Mother Nature will experience new earth birth. And this is really where the magic is. Let me tell you, I've had an ecstatic, natural, undisturbed home birth, and I still get goosebumps when I think about it. It's the highlight of my life. And the trick to achieving that is working on the subconscious mind. This is where Love Your Labor has now leveled up, because it's not just about do this, say this, take these supplements, follow these protocols to avoid the labor funnel. It's also like, okay, now we're working on our internal subconscious core beliefs about our body, our ability to handle pain, what the labor process is, the role the hospital plays. These are all subconscious beliefs that we need to get in there and work through. And this is the ticket. This is the answer. This is like the golden key to achieving your natural birth experience. And that's really why I feel so excited about all these updates with the Love Your Labor program, because this is the solution to all of the subconscious programming that it's been laid on us. It's been, we're like Sherpas carrying around all this dead weight of old, outdated beliefs that don't serve us or our birth experiences. So let's let that go. The solution is changing those beliefs. And you'll see here in module number 6, birth manifestation, is where we work a lot on the subconscious. It's where we work a lot to change those internal core beliefs that will actually result in a different birth experience outcome. Because I want you to be emotionally imprinted by your birth in the way that Mother Nature designed you to be emotionally imprinted by your birth, which is to be just in absolute rapture, to be in awe, to be in joy, to be in ecstasy. That is what I want for you. Like I said, I get goosebumps when I think about this. It was the most empowering thing I have ever experienced. I couldn't stop giggling and squealing and just talking absolute gibberish because it was next level. It was something I'd never, ever, ever experienced before. The level of endorphins and oxytocin flowing through my brain, the connection I felt with my baby, it was unbelievable. And this is how I want your birth experience to feel for you as well. So old paradigm, crumbling. We do not actually want to play in that paradigm whatsoever. It doesn't mean you can't have a hospital birth. It just means you need to go through the hospital in the new paradigm, which is with the Love Your Labor program. It's all of my naturopathic protocols. It's all of my manifestation practices. It's all of my masterminds, and it's beyond. It's so epic. The community, the women in the group are everything. They're like my friends because we just are so aligned and we get along so well. So the new paradigm is the Love Your Labor program. I want to help you reach the new paradigm of birth, right? The new earth birth, the ones that are aligned with Mother Nature and aren't just getting swept up in the greedy monetary hospital experience. So if Love Your Labor sounds interesting, if the new earth birth sounds interesting to you, we are offering 5 free birth planning calls every single month. So every month, another 5 calls will open up. And if this is interesting, book a call, learn some more about all of this. And like I said, after that, I'll be going through and describing the labor funnel in more detail, so you'll have a better grasp of that. I'll describe the birth matrix in more detail, so you'll have a better grasp of that. And even if you don't decide to join us in Love Your Labor, you will have that additional training, that additional knowledge that is really invaluable for you and your birth experience no matter what. So you really have nothing to lose, just booking the free call and getting that additional information and that additional training. And if you yourself are not pregnant, or even if you are, spread the word, share the love, tell our girlfriends. It's like girlfriends don't let girlfriends, go through the labor funnel. So if this all sounds good, you guys, I'm going to drop the link below to book a call. You'll hit a page that looks something like this. There's a time slot you can choose. Put in all your details and we will send you an email and you'll be off to the races. So this is not goodbye. Don't say goodbye. Just say, I'll talk to you later. You'll jump on a call and we'll go from there. So thank you guys so much. It's been so great chatting. I hope that this was enlightening and I'll see you on the flip side.